Welcome everybody to this week's LUMIX live session. Today is going to be a really fun session that we've got going on. We're going to be talking with Ambassador Emma from the UK region. We're going to be talking about the LUMIX G100 and her experiences with the camera, and even cover some things with climbing and really just kind of have a fun conversation across the board. If you're new to the LUMIX Live streaming experience, make sure to like and subscribe to the LUMIX Cameras channel that you're on right now. It helps us greatly in continuing to do these kinds of streams and get the message out that we have a platform for the community to reach out to everyone from technical reps to the company to ambassadors to even some cool things coming in the future with other companies that we're going to have come in and have conversations with. So make sure you're following along. If you haven't done so already, like I said, subscribe to the channel. And for those also, again, that are new to this, if you have questions throughout this stream that are either relating to the topic that we're covering today, if you have questions specifically for Emma or questions specifically for me, make sure to drop them in the chat by tagging at LUMIX Cameras. This way I see it on the dashboard on this side and I can actually interact and, get the questions answered. With that, let's actually jump over here and get the conversation going. Hey Emma, how are you?
Hi, I'm good. How are you?
Doing pretty good. Having a great early morning so far here. I think it's late evening over by you, right?
Yeah, it's 8 o'clock here in Sweden, where I'm at the moment.
Nice. So, for the viewers that are joining in, can you give us a little bit of a background as to who you are, what got you into photography, and just a bio on everything?
Of course. So, hi everyone. My name is Emma Svensson. I'm from Sweden, and I've been a professional photographer for almost 18 years now. And I started doing photography by shooting concerts. I studied photography in high school, but back then the teacher said, "Oh, it's no idea to become a photographer. There's no jobs, no money, and it's too tough competition." So after high school, I kind of took my little beginner's camera, put it in the wardrobe, and I didn't bring it out until a year later. And I was going to a concert with this Swedish band called Mando Diao, and I thought, maybe I can bring my camera and take some photos. And I never shot a concert before, but from the moment I stood there by the stage, I was just in love. It was one of the coolest things I ever done, and I just knew I have to do this. I have to start shooting concerts. So I went back home and I figured, how can I keep doing this? And this was back in 2002, so the internet just arrived where I lived, and there were many websites in Sweden that wrote about music, but no one that was focused on images. So I decided to start that type of website where I just published all my concert photos, and that actually turned into a concert photography agency over the years, and it is still today Scandinavia's largest one, working for all the major newspapers. Even if there's been little concerts to shoot the last couple of months. And also, after a couple of years, I have done over 3,500 concerts. So I felt, okay, if I have to shoot one more singer-songwriter sitting on a chair, playing guitar, I don't want to do this anymore. So that's when I turned into fashion and portraits instead. So that is basically what I shoot today. And it's mostly jobs like you have 2 minutes in a hotel room with Ed Sheeran to take pictures, or it's a record cover, or it's a fashion campaign, or lifestyle photos for some kind of brand, or just content. It's very diverse. And for fun, I also love to do landscape and outdoor photography. But that part is just basically for my own pleasure. And that's also something I love with photography, that everything you do doesn't have to be your job, that you can also enjoy photography in a different kind of way. And yeah, I climb mountains too. And that's also a fun story because when I was, discovering concert photography, and I immediately fell in love with that. that's also how I got into climbing mountains. I was on a plane to New Zealand to do some research and location scouting for a photography tour I was hosting there the next year. And somewhere around, I don't know, between Bangkok and Sydney, I wanted to watch a movie. So I was scrolling through and see what kind of movies do they have on the flight. And I stopped by the movie Everest, and I thought, oh, this is going to be cool. I love true stories. And I watched this movie about two expeditions climbing Mount Everest, and I don't want to spoil too much, but it didn't go so well for many people. And after that, I just had the same feeling in my body as when I shot my first concert, like, oh my God, I have to do this. I have to go climb mountains. I have to climb Everest. Haven't been to Everest yet though, but I climbed the highest mountain in every country in Europe as a start. And after that, it was just impossible to go back to a normal life. So these days, well, not the past couple of months, but last year, I counted the days and I spent 50% of my time in a tent on an expedition or in my van roaming around in Europe climbing mountains. So I love contrasts, and I work as a fashion photographer back in Stockholm, and then I go on an expedition and I don't take a shower for 2 weeks, and I go to the bathroom in a plastic bag and eat dry freezed food. But I'm doing an epic adventure, and yeah,
Nice.
that's me.
That's awesome. I mean, like having such a wide variety of things, in photography that are exciting, I think is just like you said, that's one of the coolest things about it, is that it can be a day job, it can be something that
Yeah.
you derive your life from, but then it can also really be an escape and an enjoyment for it. I know that's what a lot of photographers that I have conversations with, whether it's on streams like this or in like local meetings and stuff like that, that's what a lot of us, kind of love to be able to do is find a way to use the equipment that we make our livings off of, but then still have fun with it. And
Yeah.
I think that kind of segues really well into the topic for today's live stream is the LUMIX G100. We launched this camera, and I think there's some confusion in the market of who is this camera for.
Mm.
There's a lot of the traditional professionals that I know are sounding off in the chat here that are looking at the camera kind of wondering, why this camera when we have, things like the G9 or the S series, the full frame cameras.
Yeah.
And I'm curious, since you've shot with the camera for a while now, and we have some photos that we're going to be showing in a little bit, and we have a quick little video.
Yeah.
What are your kind of feelings about the camera? Where it fits in your workflow?
So I use it mainly for documentation. And this is a big part of my job too, because I'm also sort of an influencer, because I have a blog at Elle Magazine and I have an Instagram with not super many followers, but I love to share what I do and inspire others. So it's perfect for this, for documenting whatever I'm up to, doing, for publishing on my blog, on my Instagram. And I wouldn't necessarily use it for a client shoot. Then I prefer the S1R that I use. But for just, documenting regular life and also filming, like vlogging, it's perfect for that. I have a YouTube too, and I love to share my adventures. So what I did with this camera when I got it was I brought it to the Swedish mountains, because I just did a project where I climbed all of the 2,000-meter mountains in Sweden. And for this project, I was out there for almost a month, and I had to carry with me everything. So I wanted to pack as light as possible. So this camera was perfect. It's 412 grams. It's not heavy. It's small. It goes into your pocket, and it's not in the way when you climb. And I would say that's how I used it. So yeah, I'm super happy with it for this purpose.
Nice, yeah, and you know that's I think a good point for a lot of professional photographers out there, and even if you're not the traditional professional photographer where you're deriving the vast majority of your income from it, there's a place for having your workhorse cameras that are more purpose driven, like you said, the S1R. It's one of my
Yeah,
favorite cameras because of the resolution, but
exactly.
being able to still have the similar menus, the similar, workflow with the camera
Yeah.
in a much smaller package has a huge benefit for that style when you don't want to have to lug around heavier or larger equipment.
Yeah, exactly. You don't want to bring your S1 up to the mountains. It's just too much weight to carry, you know?
Yeah, yeah, and also, on the other side of the conversation, this was one of the things that I had a conversation with Jacob about when we launched the product. There's also a lot of people that are looking to get into interchangeable lens photography.
Yeah.
And that market, that entry level camera area is massively crowded. There's a ton of different options out there when you're looking at, I want
Mm.
something that's much better than my cell phone, but I also want to be able to
Yeah.
get, high quality photo and videos. And the G100, from my experience, because I used to work in photo retail, so I used to sell cameras, and then I
Yeah.
worked as a kind of semi-professional and then joined the manufacturing side.
Mm.
There's a lot of people that are wanting to get into a camera that is very easy to use, very simple, it's straightforward. It may not have, the top line list of specs that you're used to seeing in stuff like the S1R, the S1H or the GH series cameras, but
Yeah.
it fits that group perfect. And I think you nailed the point right on the head with, for those that are looking to capture, your day-to-day life or location
Yeah.
scout or things
It's
where,
perfect.
yeah. And for those that are just joining us that haven't looked into the G100 or are curious about it, the G100 is our new compact, more travel-friendly vlogging style mirrorless interchangeable lens camera. It's on the Micro Four Thirds mount, and it is designed as that either companion camera for a pro or an entry-level camera for someone who's just getting into this. So I know a lot of the people that watch our stream and are chiming in here, a lot of you guys are using, G9s, G95s, GH series, or even the S series cameras. And at that point, you want to look at the camera and say, does this fit something outside of what those cameras offer me? Am I, as Emma said, are you willing to carry around an S1H to do vlogs with, or would something more compact be, better suited for you? But looking at your experiences with it, because you mentioned
Mhm.
about taking it on the climb with you. I know
Yeah.
you sent a video over to
Yeah.
me, and I wanted to play that before we go further with the conversation, so people can see what we're talking about.
Yeah.
So I'm going to jump over to that video, and we will be right back.
Terrain is bushwhacking. Last steps to the summit.
Cool. So that's the video that kind of covers your experiences. That quick. So can we go over some of the what went through the process of setting up for that, and just kind of walk through the experience?
Yeah. So due to Corona, I had to totally reschedule all my plans for this year. I was supposed to be in Nepal climbing mountains, and when that couldn't happen, I decided to go somewhere I actually could go and see another part of Sweden that I haven't seen before. And climbing all of these mountains in Sweden, it's not super difficult. I mean, you need climbing skills, and we didn't take the easiest way up to the top on the mountains. But the big thing is that they are super remote. You have to hike for days and weeks to get to these mountains, you know? And what we wanted to do was to go super light. So we actually packed for this expedition in day packs. So we had like 38-liter backpacks. So there was no room at all to bring extra stuff. You could only bring what was super necessary. And we also did it in trail running shoes, the first part of it. So then this camera again was the perfect choice for me because it was super light, it was small, it could fit into my pocket. I could have it over my shoulder, and it would be right there. Because that's what's to happen when I'm on an expedition. I need to have my gear available because otherwise I won't take the photos. If it's tucked away in the backpack somewhere, it's impossible to stop and take a picture because when you're doing these climbs, it's quite hardcore. You don't stop. You don't stop to have a break more than maybe for 2 or 3 minutes just to have a sip of water, and you take a bar, and then you take your camera and you take a few pictures, and then you keep going. And maybe you can take a quick photo stop, but it's not like a photography expedition. It's a climbing expedition. So that's like the main thing. So the camera is for documentation. It needs to be available, and it needs to work during these circumstances too we're in, because it's always a possibility that bad weather comes along, and that's something when you film. It can be super windy, which means that when you do vlogging, the voice just gets drawn in this wind and you can't hear anything. But that's something that I really like about this camera. It has 3 microphones, right?
Yep.
Yeah,
that Ozo audio technology.
Yeah, exactly. So the audio was great, even if it was super windy. And I was really surprised because I haven't experienced that in a camera like this before. So that's something that I was blown away by. Yeah. And also I like that the screen is foldable, because sometimes you want to shoot in an angle and you can't really see the photo, and then you can just have the screen and turn it so you can actually do the composition for the photo. And that was something that I really, really liked about this camera too. And that's perfect for selfies too, if you have to take them. And you do when you do vlogging and when you share your adventure and when you do the summit photos. You mean that's when you want to take a selfie, you know, to document you're actually on the summit.
Yeah, you know, that's something I think that a lot of people you know, connotate vlogging with, you know, the kind of the traditional thing that you see on YouTube, or, you know, where it's just a whole bunch of people, you know, taking pictures of themselves. But I mean, that's been around forever. You know, going somewhere, like you said, you climb to the top of this mountain. It's like, I want a picture of me standing on this mountain. And if I can't put a tripod down, I'm going to hold it at arm's length. So when shooting that video, there were a couple questions in the chat. The video that you shot, what resolution and frame rate was that shot at? If you remember offhand.
No, I don't remember right now. Is that something you can check? Like, can you see that on the video?
I can probably check. Whatever frame rate, you know, it was shot at, there may be some weirdness with OBS because we're streaming at 60 frames per second, so it's going to change it up.
Because if it's like flickering or something, it's not like that in the original video. So that could be like the streaming that creates something, you know.
So what we'll do is I'll take a look at the video, and then we'll also note down in the comment, or not in the comment section, in the description, what the frame rate and resolution was that it was shot at. But what you guys saw was a, you know, compiled piece that was put together. So and it's also streamed through YouTube with all that kind of stuff. But using the camera, there's a lot of mix that you know, you kind of showed with it. And I'm going to jump over now because you also sent over a whole bunch of photos too. So we're going to play some of those in the background so that, you know, people can see some of your work while we're doing this. And hopefully everyone can still hear us, that I set OBS up properly for this. Hopefully. But, you know, looking at the images that people are seeing right now, which lenses or lens were you using for this experience?
So I have this lens that it comes with. It's a 12-32 millimeter.
Mm-hmm. Nice. So all the pictures that people are seeing, those are all with that kit 12 to 32?
Yes.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Now,
and for
so
me,
now,
there is something that I really love about it. I have to show you. Like you fold it, and then it becomes even smaller, which is amazing.
yeah. That was one of the things that I loved about it. Like when I first got like our samples, to be able to familiarize ourselves with the cameras and be able to train people on it. It surprised me because normally my day-to-day camera that I would carry, like if I'm going downtown or something, when we were allowed to go downtown, was our LX100 Mark II, because I liked, the manual controls, the smaller size, things like that. And more importantly for me, it would fit in my motorcycle jacket. I wouldn't have to bring a backpack or anything like that. This one, yes, it's a little bit bigger than that LX, but it still fits in my jacket pocket, and I can ride with it and not have to lug around my backpack, because I was one of those people that would walk around with an S1 or an S1R, like just on the street for street photography with it.
Yeah.
So I think when you look and you categorize, where this camera sits for people like yourself that are professionals, that are creating images and videos for a living, there's always a place for, something like this that may not be everything that your top tier camera has, but it's a straightforward camera. It just does what it's advertised to do. It takes photos, it takes great photos and great videos, and is compact, is that kind of core thing.
Exactly. Because I haven't had a camera that fits into my pocket before, and this one actually does. So I'm super happy with that, That's
nice.
a really important thing for me. As you said, it's not the camera I bring to a photo shoot in a studio to do a big fashion campaign, but for this, going on an expedition, it's just the perfect thing.
Yeah. And that's I think, a good point for a lot of people. And when looking at the kit that you're traveling with, can you touch on, this is going to be a little bit different from the climbing and the G100 in general, because I think there's a lot of people having conversations across the board between G100 and G9 and S series.
Mm-hmm.
You had mentioned that fashion photography and portraiture is your primary business. Could you also touch a little bit on that with, like what kind of lenses are your favorite to use? Because there's a couple of people that have been asking, about that side of your background as well.
Yeah, so for fashion and portrait photography and lifestyle and everything else, I use the S1R, and I have a 24-105 with Aperture 4, and that's perfect for me because I love to have a lens where I can zoom. I know that some people really love to have a lens with a fixed focus length, but for me it's super important to be flexible when I shoot. If I'm in a studio or in location, I love to have the opportunity to zoom. And when it comes to fashion and portrait photography, I often shoot between Aperture 4 and 8, because if I have too short depth of focus, it looks more like a wedding picture or like a very family portrait picture. It doesn't have the fashion style, the coolness that I'm looking for when I shoot. So I often shoot on an Aperture around 4 or 8 when I do fashion and portrait photography.
Nice.
And what else would you like to know?
Yeah. So, with balancing between, the S series and the G series cameras, when you are making, and this is again going back to actually the hiking side too, since we've answered that question.
Yeah.
What kind of things go into your process for, deciding what camera to take? on an expedition or a hike or even like your day to day. Not just going like on this hike.
Yeah. So I also have a GX9 that I use, and I use that a lot on like photography tours, or if I'm traveling but I have more space and I can carry something that's slightly bigger. And I decide what kind of camera depending on like where am I going, how heavy can I carry, am I gonna be traveling in my car and I can have everything accessible, or do I have to carry it out into the wilderness? That's a huge factor for deciding what kind of camera I'm gonna use. And what else? I guess it's also about what am I shooting? I mean, if I do photos just for my blog, it's going to be either the G100 or the GX9. And if I do a professional job, it's going to be my S1R. So that's quite simple there. But I also actually had used the GX9 to deliver photos for clients, because I've done outdoor shoots with them, like shooting events for the North Face in Chamonix out in the mountains, because that's when I need to have a smaller camera to be able to work, because can't carry around all this heavy gear and climb at the same time, because then you won't be as mobile and fast, and everything won't be as accessible. And also, when I climb, I mean, there's always a risk that I smash the camera into a wall or something, or I can drop something, and it would be kind of sad to drop my S1R, actually, to be honest. That's something you have to take into consideration too when you choose your camera, you know, because it's not risk-free what I'm doing.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's a pretty pretty important thing. Yeah, you know, the cameras are just tools, no matter which one you're using, and
Yeah.
you know, knowing the environment you're going into. It's kind of like what we talked about with a couple weeks ago when we were talking with a couple photojournalists, that you know, going into any kind of experience, whether it's even just, you know, going downtown or going on a hike or going on a paid job, you want your equipment to work. And you also have to know that, you know, if something were to happen, you know, is it really the end of the day with it?
Yeah.
And I think, you know, when we talk about going back to the hardware side of it a bit,
Yeah.
you had mentioned a couple things about, you know, the camera in general. So for those that are maybe not as up to date on the G100, like we had said before, it is our compact camera. So I've got one here. So lightweight, compact. It has that front-facing screen that we were talking about, and I think if you're someone coming from the other G series cameras, so if you've already got something like a G95 or a G85 or even a G9, you know, there's a lot of benefit of looking at something like this as that day-to-day carry camera, because it's a micro four thirds mount. That means that every single one of your existing lenses is going to mount perfectly fine on this. Now, will a 100 to 400 balance as well on this as it does on a G9? Maybe not the best, but it's still a camera that's capable for that. So when we looked into, you know, designing this camera and finding a market that really likes it, that it would fit, you know, well for, taking a lot of that into consideration of being able to adapt lenses, or do you go with a fixed lens like the LX series, a fixed zoom lens? When you're picking the cameras, like you'd said before, you know, situational, would you, if the G100 hadn't been out, are you someone who would have gone to, say, like an LX or a fixed zoom lens camera, or would you typically stick to an interchangeable lens camera?
No, I would stick with the possibility to change my lens for sure.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's something I think a lot of the viewers here probably have the same kind of opinion on there. Now, to go a little bit of the technical details, for those, I see a couple people are actually commenting that you've either got one on pre-order and you're waiting for it to release and to ship. So I'll cover that first. Depending on the region that you're in, the cameras, at least I know here in the United States, have begun shipping. I think in other regions they're either starting to ship now or they're about to ship. You'd have to check with your local dealer on things like that. But to refresh some of those that are out there and kind of clear up some of the confusion that I've seen over the last couple weeks, this is still it's a 20 megapixel camera. It's 20 megapixels, micro four thirds. It's a similar sensor that we're using in the G95 and a G9. So you're getting that great resolution, which actually I'm going to put your photos back up here so that people can see. You're getting really high resolution, high quality images that, again, doesn't have the low pass filter like a lot of our cameras. So it really does sit incredibly well as a high quality stills camera. But then for the video users out there, it's a 4K 30p camera. So for that vlogging capabilities, you've got 4K video recording, 1080 video recording if you're trying to be really light on the editing side and light on the capture side. And I think one of the cool things that we came out with this is this hand grip on this camera. So this grip allows you to actually have the camera handheld with the video record, photo start stop, and sleep mode on it. So again, it becomes super easy for you to just maneuver with. And let me just smack my microphone and make everybody go deaf. It just becomes a super easy camera. So
I love that little tripod thing, because when you do vlogging, it's perfect because then you get a little bit further from your face. You don't get that close up, so that's perfect.
Yeah, and for those that are also looking to do photography with it, it doubles as a tripod. So you've got an entire kit in way more compact than you'd get from pretty much any of the other cameras that we've offered in the modern time. I know there's a lot of people out there that loved the GM series cameras, which were those tiny little compact interchangeable lenses. Think of this as kind of that throwback to that style of camera. So just to jump in here too with the chat going on, as a reminder, if you guys have questions that you want to have answered about either the style of photography, technical questions that you guys have, drop them in the chat. We have some members in the chat that are actually answering the questions in there, as well as we're monitoring it to be able to get you guys answers as well. Moving into your overall experiences, when you were, going through the climb with the G100, how was the overall operation of it? Did you find any challenges while you were in the middle of your climb shooting?
No, not really. It's very simple to use. It's like perfect for someone who haven't had a proper camera before, because it's just on, and then I always shoot in the aperture mode because the light is often changing a lot when I'm out shooting, and I don't have time to do all the settings manually. So I just make sure I have auto white balance. I shoot in the aperture mode, and I love to use one focus point. So I just focus on whatever I want to focus on, and it has touchscreen also for that. So it's very simple and easy to use, and that's perfect in these situations, because maybe you just have a few seconds to take a photo because you're belaying someone at the same time, or you're on your way, or you're wading over a river, and you can't really use it at the same time because you need to really focus on not slipping and getting washed away with the river, So yeah, I really enjoy that being super easy to use.
Cool. So when with shooting at this style, which I think would be at least how I would envision it, you're probably not using the viewfinder as often, right?
I do, actually. I do. Because it's easier for me when I'm just having the rope attached and everything, and I can still watch what's going on the side with the climb, and I can take the photo at the same time. So I actually use it a lot.
Cool. Yeah, and
Yeah.
from a technical standpoint, I know that one of the big considerations with designing the camera was making that rear LCD and the viewfinder super bright, so that, I mean, looking at a lot of these images, you know, someone going out with a cell phone would probably be struggling to see the screen and be able to frame. How
Yeah.
was the experience shooting using the screen?
Oh, I didn't have any problems at all. I didn't even think that was actually maybe a problem because I didn't have that problem with the camera even. So yeah, I haven't even thought about it.
Yeah. So
It worked great.
let's see here. So it looks like we have a question from Steve H. Photography in camera. Can you edit videos just for start and ending of them, or in the middle too? Not sure exactly what the question is directing towards, Steve. If you're looking at, you know, trying to be able to actually edit a video in camera, or are you looking at being able to pause and restart video? If you follow up in there, we'll see if we can get you an answer for there. So looking at oh, okay, so he says editing in camera. As far as video goes, in camera editing that you have for video is you have the ability to do video divide, which we have in a lot of our cameras, so you can just cut a clip down, but there's not actually any editing that you can do in a camera. Current interchangeable lens cameras and point and shoot cameras typically just don't have the horsepower to actually edit full-blown video in them. That's where a laptop or desktop would come in handy. Which segues right into the next question I wanted to ask you, Emma, is so while you're in a situation like this climb, and weight being a concern for, you know, this kind of expedition, what do you normally go through in, like, either an editing process or kind of a storage process? How do you tackle, you know, maintaining all of your images while you're out there?
So actually, since I had to go really, really lightweight on this expedition, I just had one extra battery, one extra memory card with me, and I didn't actually have a backup. But I had my laptop in my car, so I could back up after. And I was just hoping and praying that nothing would happen, you know. But the thing is, I didn't even have to change memory card because I could just store all the images on one card. And that's also something that I could have done, like halfway through, change the memory card to at least save a few. I had like a dry bag to put everything in for crossing the rivers or if it was raining heavily, so I can protect them there. But wait. I was actually Bluetoothing over images to my phone. Yes, I did that. But I just had a solar panel with me for charging. And I didn't have to charge the batteries more than once, I think. So yeah, that was how I ended up managing all of that during this expedition.
Very cool, very cool. Yeah. So the wireless connection, and for those that are in the chat, the G100 has Wi-Fi capabilities and Bluetooth capabilities that are totally independent of a network. So you don't have to have cellular service. You don't have to have any kind of connection to the world. The camera creates a hotspot, your phone connects to it, and you can offload images. And we have other videos about how to do that, which we will either drop in the comments below or in the description below, or you can check out the LUMIX Cameras channel or the Panasonic Help channel. And we have a whole bunch of training videos on that kind of stuff. But so you mentioned that, you know, when it came to charging, you were using just a solar kind of charger for it. So did you charge in camera, or did you get one of the external chargers?
No, in camera.
Cool.
I couldn't bring extra gear, so I charge it just with a wire.
Cool. So really looking at that kind of whole, idea of how this camera fit into it. When you came back from the climb, did you find that you have more, wanting to use the camera more for other types of photography as well, or does it really kind of sit in that home as your kind of like adventure camera, for lack of a better way to describe it?
Yeah, like you used the term like daily camera before, and I love that because that's what I'm going to use it for. Tomorrow I leave on a 3-week road trip with my van. I'm actually going to leave Sweden for the first time since we've been not able to travel, and I'm going to the Alps to climb and also just to train, and I'm going to bring this camera to do my daily updates on my blog, on my Instagram. But I'm also going to try to take really good photos with the camera, maybe for an upcoming expedition that I'm having, exhibition that I'm having here in Stockholm when I get back home in September. So I'm actually going to use it for some work too. But it's going to be more like nature, landscape, climbing photos than proper like fashion photography, because I'm not going to be able to do that right now. I don't bring any models on my road trip, unfortunately.
Yeah, I think, for everybody that's watching, I think we've touched on that point a couple of times. The being able to have something with you to document your day-to-day life, to document a road trip or an experience. And I think now more than ever, being able to do that is a very important thing. It kind of helps keep you in a creative space. It keeps your mind from getting bogged down. And that kind of segues into a bit of one of the questions that we were talking about before we went live. And that's, what have you found to be able to kind of help keep you creative through the last couple of months? You said, not being able to go climbing.
Yeah, we talked about that I was going to Nepal for an expedition, but I couldn't go in the spring. So I live in Stockholm, it's sea level, we don't have any mountains here. And we have a hill, it's 86 altitude meters high. So I decided to go climb Everest in this hill. So for 40 hours, I went up and down, 116 times to reach the altitude of 8,848 meters. So that was something I did just to keep motivation going on when I was here in Stockholm and couldn't go anywhere.
So, and from the photo side of it, I know everyone always, kind of struggles with the creativity when it comes to our photography. And knowing that, as you mentioned with fashion and portraiture, that's something that involves, close contact with other people.
Yeah.
What have you found, or what kind of maybe advice can you give to some of the photographers and videographers out there that may be, trying to find ways to channel that creative energy? Is there something that you have found from a creative side for photography or videography that, has really worked for you?
How do you mean? Can you explain better?
So, not being able to go and work on necessarily a project, is there anything else photographically that you've done that kind of helps keep yourself in that mood or mental space for photography?
I actually took a break from photography, and that was amazing because I've been shooting every day for all of my life pretty much. And now when all of this happened and life changed, and it's been tough as a photographer during these times because the sector I'm in, like shooting events, concerts, and lifestyle and fashion and portrait, all of that is shut down because you're not allowed to gather people, which means that there hasn't been any jobs almost. So I had to be creative in different ways, like what can I do that has to do with photography that is not actually shooting and doing jobs for clients. So I've been taking a little break from shooting, and I've been actually writing about photography a lot, writing about things that I'm curious about within photography. And that keeps me really creative, because I always been very curious about other photographers and how you do things and how things work, and just having Zoom meetings with other photographers and writing articles about it. That's been keeping me creative. So I've done a little bit of a different thing here during these times, actually.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah. So,
Yeah, I get very inspired by just
nice.
talking to other photographers.
So there's a lot of people that had asked a little while ago, and I missed the moment to bring up the questions before, but a lot of people, because I have the slideshow running of your images.
Yes.
There's a lot of people that want to know where they can, see more of your work, where they can, follow you on these expeditions. Could you give us a little bit of
I would say my Instagram is the best place, and my name is Emma Svensson Photo. I can write it in a comment later, and you're happy to follow along. And I'm gonna do some cool expeditions in the upcoming weeks and months. So yeah, it's gonna be fun to share. And you can
awesome?
also, of course, see more of photos I'm gonna take with the G100, because that's the camera I'm gonna bring for my next expedition too.
Nice. So
Yeah.
yeah, we'll once this video is up on YouTube, we'll also put some of the cards and annotations and notations and all that fun stuff over to your social media networks, so that people can actually see and follow along. We're coming up to the top of the hour here, and I wanted to take a little bit. I know we've jumped back and forth between a bunch of different topics, and I know that there's a couple different technical questions that are coming through on the chat here. So as far as wow, I just read it, and all of a sudden I had a whole bunch that come through, and it just quickly jumped up. Gotta love YouTube. I forgot to turn slow mode on. So for those, the question from Janet, she has some larger Panasonic lenses, the 50 to 200, for instance. Is there enough room to hold the grip with larger lenses like this? Luckily, Janet, the G100, because the lens mount is the same as a lot of the other cameras, the 50 to 200 and the 100 to 400 actually do fit pretty comfortably on this camera. The lens on those cameras, if you look, I'll try to see if I can get I might actually be too close to that camera there. Yeah, there you go. So the mount area here, the way those lenses are designed is they come up a bit and then they go out, so you have more than enough space to actually get your fingers in here. At least from my personal experience. I have my 100 to 400 in my closet storage thing, but I can always grab that later and send some photos up. Let's see, what other questions do we got?
There was actually one question, I saw it earlier, that asked me about how it was if it got wet during my expedition, the camera.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, and yeah, it did get wet, and because we had really bad weather some of the days. Like in the beginning of the expedition, it was sunny and super nice, and then we had the worst weather. It was raining, it was snowing sideways, it was storm, it was hail. Yeah, it was shit. And yeah, the camera held up pretty good. I actually had it out over my shoulder most of the time, but when it started raining really heavily, I put it inside the backpack just because I wanted to make sure it didn't get ruined anyhow. But it did get wet, pretty wet, and it wasn't a problem.
Yeah. So this is where I put that nice little caveat on that. The camera is not rated for weather sealing or things like that, but I have the same experiences. You go out, you get caught in some rain, you get caught in an environment, and light rain can be okay as long as you're being careful with the camera, but just know that there is always that risk there. If you bring a camera that is not rated to be weather sealed or weather resistant, there are chances for water to get inside the camera. So be careful out there, everybody. You just want to know your equipment, know what its limitations are. That's the company side. I have to make sure that I clarify that camera is not officially weather resistant. Let's hear. So another question from Janet was, how's the image quality versus the GX8? I have the GX8 and a GM5 and looking to upgrade to a 20 megapixel sensor in a smaller body. Now I know you, Emma, you said that you also use a GX9.
Yes.
So from a comparison between those two, not to put you on a total spot here if you haven't done side-by-side comparisons, because not all of us are doing crazy comparisons, camera to camera. How would you say the image quality was from, working with the files that came out of the G100?
I would say similar. It's not a big difference in my perspective, but as you said, I haven't done any tests, and I also only been using this camera for a couple of weeks, so I'm not an expert in the field, but I wouldn't say that it was a huge difference. No, I wouldn't say that.
Yeah. Now, for someone I know Janet comment here that she was using the GX8, which was using a older generation of the 20 megapixel sensors. I would say from direct comparisons that I've done with the GX8 series 20 megapixel sensors, it is a massive improvement over that generation. If you're looking at the GX9, the GX9, the G95, the G100, and the G9 all share similar sensors. They're all of a similar generation. They all have the removal of the low pass filter, so you're going to get nice, sharp, clear images. Again, as you can see, we've got the images playing for you guys to be able to see here. Kind of the last thing I want to cover before we kind of wrap up the session here is when working, obviously with photography being, our day-to-day, our enjoyment side of it, and, the climbing that we've been showing, that we've been talking about, what kind of advice would you give to anyone in the chat here that has been, looking at these images and is now kind of feeling inspired to, kind of follow a bit in what you're doing, actually going out and doing these things on their own? Is there any kind of advice you can give?
Yeah, I mean, I think that you should take it easy in the beginning. It's yeah, but it can be dangerous. I mean, looking at these pictures, it looks very nice, but the photo from the glacier, we had the coldest day in July, and on the other side of the mountain, this one's playing now. We had the coldest day in July, and on the other side of the mountain, the weather was horrible. It was snowing, it was storming, and on the top it was -10 Celsius. And then we came down on the other side, and it was shiny weather and super nice. And when we got off the glacier, it was 3 hours of bushwhacking through a swamp in the middle of the night. Yeah, it was a long day, and this was the lowest point on the expedition for me because I had it with all the mosquitoes that were chasing us all the time. And that's the thing, like the conditions always change very fast in the mountains. You have to be prepared for that. You have to know where you're going and how the conditions going to be like, and you have to keep evaluating yourself during all the climb. Like, how do I feel? Do I have enough strength and power and energy to get to the top and to get back down safely? And what happens if the weather turns into a really, really bad situation and it's a whiteout and there's no visibility? Can I still find my way home? Maybe you should have like a GPS watch. You can backtrack your trail or something like that. Maybe you should make sure that someone knows where you are, because maybe you're in an area without any cell phone reception, so you can't call for help if you need to. So there's a lot of things that can be pretty serious. And when I started climbing, I did easy mountains by myself. But for the harder ones with glaciers or actual climbing, I used guides in the beginning because then they will take care of you and you can learn from them. And when you get more experience, you can do more hardcore stuff by yourself. But it's amazing to climb mountains because it's like meditating. You have to be totally focused and you have to be in the present. You can't think about problems back home or your work or relations or anything. You just have to focus on the next step. And many people, they think that climbing mountains, it's like an adrenaline rush, like skiing or bungee jumping. but it's not. It's pain and suffer, but it's so rewarding. Because when you done this challenge that you didn't even know that you could do from the beginning, you feel so proud, and also it kind of makes you a better person. Someone said that climbing a mountain is like 40% physical, 40% mental, and 20% the circumstances. And it's pretty true. You become really strong mentally to climb mountains, and fit too. I mean, when I started, I was a couch potato, promise you guys. So yeah, if I can do this, so can you. But just know what you're doing and be safe.
Very cool. Very cool. I think that's a great way to end this this conversation. I want to thank you for taking the time to join us. Like we said, we know it's later in the afternoon there. This was a really fun conversation. I know, like we always try to keep these LUMIX live sessions, somewhat technical, somewhat, more experiential, and, try to have the conversation with the chat and, kind of really provide a good outlet for all of us to experience new things that in photography, videography, and then obviously now even in life that you don't necessarily experience everywhere else. So, if you guys in the chat enjoyed this week's stream, make sure to hit the like button on this video. Make sure to subscribe to Panasonic, the LUMIX Cameras channel, the one that you're on right now. And also make sure to hit the bell icon so you get the notifications. Like I said, Emma, thank you so much for joining me today. It was a really fun conversation. And for everybody else out there in the crowd, I look forward to seeing or talking with everybody next week on Thursday at 2 p.m. Eastern Time. We have a fun conversation about underwater photography and videography with the LUMIX cameras. So with that, again, thank you all. Tune in next week, and we'll see you then.
Thank you so much. Bye.